we can start recording as well. You read my mind. So, welcome everyone to, let me wear my earphone so you can hear me. Okay, welcome to the session for the data tracking, and I think that this is one of the sessions that it's gonna create a lot of questions from you as well, because this is what we also expect to hear from you. So first, there is no right or wrong question. Just if you are confused and if you have any question, just ask in this space as well. And even in this space, even if that all of the question is not answered, then don't worry, because in the upcoming time, I'm gonna set up some consultancy space and also in the commission call to have more space and talk about deeper part for you as well. Okay, so I hope that you can gain the best from the session. And yeah, introduce about me. My name is Ni. Yes, this is me. And together with me today, we're gonna have a very amazing people the amazing people, the representation of TM of many generations. Caroline, yes. Caroline, do you want to say hi to everyone?
Hey everyone, sorry I can't talk too loud here, but yay.
Hey, so Caroline is very famous. She is even more famous than AI member as well. So in the standby. So in the AI, we usually make a joke that, oh, do you know that, did you talk to Caroline? Which one? The famous Caroline. So then we will know who's that. Okay, cool. So standby. Now, the session objective, we're gonna have, first I'm gonna go through with you with the national tracking framework. So basically, of course, I cannot provide you with every single detail of tracking. And if you create your own tracking, it's gonna easier for you to use, but then we're gonna go through what is the structure that we need to have in the tracking tool. Second is, we're gonna talk a part about the indirect impact and the synergy, understand how team can start to drive the indirect impact through a strategic partner. And we're gonna have some key way forward and also recommendation for the game and also the data tracking routine as well. And finally, we will try to have at least 10 minutes for you so that all of the question and concern you can also ask at the end. Okay, cool. So now let's go with the first part with the tracking framework. I just want to ask you several questions, okay? So you can also share or you can also type in the chat so I can know. It's like, what are the learning that you have from the tracking of TM tracking data in the past? Sorry, the grammar is a bit messy. But basically, when you implement the TM data tracking in the past, right? When we still have TM process and team standard, what are the learning that you have from that time? You can think on it. But I also have another one, like, do you have a national tracking for MXB already yet? Yes or no? Or what are, yes, true. And what are the challenge that when you build a tracking for your entity? So you don't need to like answer one by one, but you can just share anything that in your head when we think about this topic in the chat. Or you can also open your mic. Nothing. Or maybe I believe that you are typing. No challenge. Okay. So many adaptation to LC reality. Okay. I get what you mean now. Because maybe the tracking is not like LC want to track another way and then MC want to track another way. Usually. Cool. Yes. So I know that from the way that we are usually doing tracking and data tracking for national side, right? And especially right now, because we are having They accountability and awareness. Accountability and awareness. With the data tracking, right? And aware what kind of data to track. Okay, I see. I also see that there are also a lot of challenge, like when we are start to tracking the funnel, right? Even for me from the global side, it's very hard for me to understand the funnel in the local context right now because we don't have everything ready for expire yet. I know that being the first generation is always very tough, but also at the same time, it's very challenging for me as well as global to understand how we can understand the data. And then when I think about national team side, in your side, how you gonna track your performance in this case? Because when we think about it, it's actually a lot, but also at the same time, when we try to track a lot of things, what is the thing that matter the most for us is more important in this case. So I think it's also something that is gonna be the expectation that I would like to have for you when we start a space. Like we cannot send for you every single thing, and we cannot like say that okay, you just use this tracking and it's gonna be applicable for your case. But then we're gonna go and analyze what is the thing that we need to track, and based on your own way of managing, you can decide on what is the thing that's more important for you to track and what is something that you don't need to track, but then your LC can be the one to track it. So that because that is also the reason why we have a commission. Okay, so let's start with the first thing. Okay, maybe when you look into this funnel, you realize there's something different with the original funnel that we have, right? So basically, after I receive a lot of feedback, and then after I see the input from people, there's gonna be one minor adjustment in our funnel so far. Basically, it's gonna be for that advanced stage, because for other experience, ELD experience, right? We need to finish and complete, and then we can apply for another opportunity. However, for MXP membership, they can actually apply for another opportunity and they are still realization in the current experience. So that which means when they are still realization, they still can apply for other opportunity as well. So they can do double role or triple role, but they don't need to like make complete happen first and then have apply for another opportunity. So which means that the way that we are tracking advanced now gonna be a little bit tricky as well, because if they apply in the middle of the term, then how it's gonna be tracked. However, I just want to let you update that this is gonna be gonna adjust in the funnel for the advanced stage. The rest of the thing is gonna go at the same. And also for the state of like lead and alumni, right? So some people asking about what happened in the state of alumni. Basically, alumni stay the alumni is just like a status on Xbar. It doesn't mean that these people gonna become can join the alumni if in your entity you have different criteria to define who's alumni and who's not alumni based on the alumni network in your entity. Then it's gonna be another different things. But then for us in this case, it's just a status. And also for the lead part, right? There's one thing about the lead part is the reason why we have this. I see that there's a lot of confusion on how we're gonna track this KPI as well. So basically, I want to be clarified in this part is when you have the sign up form on the XBAR, the ATS one we have on XBAR, you in that sign up form we can only collect very several information. However, as I understand, in the local context, you have many different ways to collect the application and of the people, and you want to ask a lot of more questions as well. And also because not all of the time that we're gonna do recruitment. So which means, but then the members, the young people, they always want to apply for ISAC. So which means that if we can have a thing called lead form, or it could be like info seeker, and then these people can leave their database and then they can become a lead one, and then in the next week of recruitment we're gonna follow up with them and we can do lead nurturing and tell them that okay, right now we don't do recruitment, but when we are having recruitment we can invite them to some activity, and when the recruitment campaign is coming, then we can start to contact these people. So this is also the reason why right now for the list state, this is the meaning of it. And for now, if I know that there's gonna be a lot of confusion in the tracking in this state, but it will keep the same in this case. And I think that if there's something changing, let's see when 100% of network is implementing, and then let's see how it's going first, and then If it need to change, it's gonna change in at least 1 or 2 years. Not gonna be in your turn. Secondly is, yes, you already see about this slide, and I think this slide is very important for TM to know. So that's why I put it here again. In the past, when you're working on the timeline of operation, right, you're gonna have gatekeep develop timeline, and then you're gonna have team standard timeline. But you already understand what is the problem with the gatekeep timeline and team standard timeline, because you don't know when it's gonna be the best time for you to do a certain thing. So you are just like do an estimation of, okay, let's do some succession planning at this time because it's a good time to do succession planning. However, right now, everything we are planning need to be more strategic in a way that when you are planning and when you are working in planning with other people, right? You need to have a tracking tool to actually tracking by different duration, and in each duration you're going to understand what kind of role in which team or in which department that you're going to have, and based on this one you can align that overall timeline with the MCVB in other department. And because of after you align in this case, then your MCB and also your the MCVB in other department, they're gonna know what is the overall the big picture of honorable member experience in a bigger picture. And based on this one, then we can actually understand what is the monthly focus of TM. Because basically when you are actually managing everything in a vertical way, you can see that, okay, in February, it's gonna be the fitness peak for the short-term goal of the CC conference, but it's gonna be the realization for the team leader in this case. So which means that your action is right now is not like succession planning, but your action is gonna be based on its type of duration and based on it type of the experience. So for example, if this one if the short-term people is having the fitness phase in February, then which means that the conversation you need to talk with the team leader of the short term is gonna be different with the conversation when you talk about the for the medium term, because right now the medium term they just start the realization. And based on this one, you can know that, okay, in a monthly basis, when you want to track your network and when you also want to understand your entity context, right, you can also understand what is the focus that you're gonna have in this case. So I know that it's gonna be a little bit challenging when we are managed by experience, but also it's gonna give us a more correct way to approach on, okay, what is the support they're gonna need in this period of time. And when you approach different VB in different functions, you're gonna know what type of conversation that we need to talk with them in different months as well. Yeah, so this is how we're gonna basically we're gonna plan for it, and everything need to be based on the member experience. It's not based on how do we estimate the time and how when we want to do certain thing then we put the timeline, but it's based on the experience that we are actually planning. And then in this part, it's also very important for TM to understand again. So that's why I'm mentioning about this part for you. We already talked about the full scope of management, right? Talent that in the way that you do operation, there always need to be the people that play four role, as I telling you here. The role about talent data intelligence, it could be you or it could be one people. But at least we need to have someone to working on it. We need to have some people to working on quantity and quality at the same time, which is something like in the past when we have get keep develop, we only have get people is working on the recruitment, but then they don't tracking the funnel of the rest of the process, or we don't have the people that taking care for the quality of the experience, for example. So which means that in this way you can ensure that when there's something wrong with any experience, for example, when you're tracking a funnel and you see that the funnel of this role of this duration having a lot of break realization or having a lot of like break approval even before they start realization, then when you approach the problem, the thing that we're gonna start looking to is based on this full scope of work, and also based on this one you can start to figure out what is actually the problem in this way. So the way that you are managed and the way that you are having the conversation to analyzing is gonna fall into this full scope of work, and you're gonna manage the experience in the horizontal way like this one. And which means that everything that you are working gonna be built on based on the vertical one and the horizontal one. I also share this slide with the MCB, and they told me that they know how to manage team operation already. So all the best as well, because they understand what you are doing. which is very good, no? Cool. And this one, uh, so actually I'm working on MXP Master Tracker. Basically, in this one, we're gonna have like everything that you need to track. Of course, I don't think that my tracking tool gonna be very super good, but then it's gonna be at least giving you a structure of how things should be look like. Disclaimer, because I know that people are gonna start go to the link right away. The tracker gonna be only published after 15th of November when all of the RFS is finished in all region. So that after that space, you can start to downscale or you can start to go to the tracker, review it, and then see what is there anything that you are missing in the tracking tool? Is there any part that you are not think about, or is there any example that you can actually take for your network? I know that it's not gonna apply for everyone, but um, and it cannot like do very small tracker, but then it can be an example for you to have an overall idea. And my always recommendation is have your own way of tracking. Okay, this one is just treat it like idea, because I don't want you to like I don't want to spoon feeding you and then you do exactly like what I'm doing. And my recommendation once again is let's working on your old tracking tool first, and ensure that before you start the next term, you have your old tracking tool. And you need to start to create it first, and then when you bring it to us, then I can have you to give feedback, or is it good or not, or what is the thing that you need to improve. Because like if we try to give you a lot, but then if it's not coming from you, then it's gonna be like the teacher teaching, but then the student is not actually practice kind of. Okay, so what is the thing? What gonna be the structure of the whole tracking tool here? You cannot access the link right now, of course, because I don't open the access, but then I'm gonna show you. The first part is gonna be including the research and the analysis. What is gonna be include? Macro external research, micro internal external research, micro internal research. If you do marketing, you're gonna know it. Okay, so it's gonna be look a little bit like this. Of course, yeah, just disclaimer, don't. Okay, so for example, in this part, right, basically, in this part, I recommend you that not to create your own tracker, but in this way, I recommend you to actually have the tracker that follow the marketing tracking, because like when marketing, they start the research, right, they need to do a macro external research for all the ELD. And then based on this one, you can also have the research, you can conduct the research with the micro external one, which is to understand the member persona of the market of the network. And then after you understand about the persona of like what is the trend of young people and so on, then we can actually go deeper into the micro external part about how's the market penetration, how the brand awareness. Because in this way, you can actually understand should you do strategy about brand awareness, should you do launching or not. One thing that I usually see in a lot of entity is like for TM, right? We don't have, because before we are not product head, so that we don't think about one thing. We need to plan for 6 months ahead. Like for example, when I work objects, right, I always like sitting and do brand awareness with new market. And then in the next 6 months, I'm gonna come to that market and convert them into our customer. For TM, we usually don't think about it, and we just wait for 4 weeks of attraction campaign to recruit people. And in this case, if your entity marketing have very good brand, then you can have startup. But if your marketing in entity doesn't have good brand, then the possibility that we can have enough startup is not very high. If we are just like harvest in the current pool, but then like actually expand or penetrate in more. Also, another thing that we can look into is the competitor and share value partner. But this one is just optional for you to actually have a tracking tool or have a research on it as well. In terms of the internal research, right? This one is very important. More important. Okay, so internal research is gonna be understand about the member and customer behavior, which means that it's gonna be good if we can have a way to understand about the quantity inside and the quality inside. So for example, from the GAM survey, you can understand about like how many member is feeling not good or how many member is feeling not okay with the experience, and how are they doing. But also at the same time, we can also have the interview with the member and some team leader to understand why they stay, why they apply, or why they leave the organization, so that we can understand what is something need to be improved from the experience. Uh, Also do the analysis and research on the funnel timeline and the conversion, or the ideal HR with the different department, review with the different department in the vicinity to understand if the ideal HR is actually being achieved or not, and the MX standard implementation and LBS tracking, and also review the list-based delivery quality. So all of these things, actually there's something of it already included inside of the MC replanning framework. But in this case, if you, but of course, that's one, it's just the very overall one that you can see here. So in the internal context, I don't know if last time all of you joining the MSP submit, but then, like for example, we need to break down the timeline into duration and by the role. We need to analyze the conversion. We need to start tracking the standard as well. When we do analysis and so on. And we also have the method to tracking the LBS as well. So in this case, you can also follow the global one, but at the same time, I would recommend that if you want to do a proper research and understanding and tracking, then you can also create your own tool as well. Okay. So this part is gonna be about overall about the research one. The next part is gonna be about the funnel planning and every type of planning. So basically, when you are starting with the process of planning, of course, we need to start to have like a planning breakdown by its duration and the conversion rate. Yeah, and this is something that already sent for you in the MC planning framework when you need to plan for each duration. And also I have a tag for you to break it down into by role. However, in my opinion, if you have, my recommendation is you and the LCVB team should also have a space where you can break it down into a smaller as well as the big picture that I just showing you, that you understand in different LC different department, what is the role they have, what is the role they need, and then the timeline. So that if you break it down in smaller way, then you can ensure that the funnel understanding and also the timeline is being managed in a better way. Strategy consolidation and the master timeline. The master timeline is something that I just told you just now when you're managing everything in a vertical way, where that you align the timeline of MX timeline with the operation timeline of other departments. So in this case, it's very important for us because I believe that the whole MC team gonna looking for it, and then the MCB gonna looking for it to understand what is the operation of TM. Yes, beside of the funnel planning, yes, we're gonna have the ideal HR planning as well. But then also beside the ideal HR, something that may not see in the global one is the attraction planning. The replanning framework is the attraction planning. So what gonna be the recruitment timeline? What gonna be the tracking tool and the thing that we're gonna have for product packaging for national and local level, the campaign, the message, and target persona. So in this one, it could be we should have one thing that we usually don't notice is the best way is when I'm doing objects, right? I always have a tracking like this with my marketing to understand what is the thing that they are gonna do, what is the product packaging, and so on, so that when we do attraction, it's gonna be very clear on the timeline and the package and the message as well. But it's optional for you. It's not doesn't need to be here. It's depend on you. Selection process and LC structure as well. Yeah, this one you already know. Also, there's one thing in the planning of the MC planning framework. I only ask you to set a goal for LBS response rate. However, in the local one, it's also need to have like what gonna be your plan to actually improvement the LBS. One of the things that I can update for you is we already have the list pay to be downscale, and it actually can be a part of how we can improve the thing as well. So it doesn't need to be something that very complicated, but it can be a type of you understand that in the member journey, what gonna be the list pay that we can deliver and how the list pay can be delivered. Example like the SOB for the standard that I just shared with you just now. The next part is about the standard. Yes, I know it's gonna be a lot, right? But of course, I don't ask you to do everything. The standard as well. So for the standard, we should have the SOP for the MX standard, and also the one for the non-standard as well, which is the process for recruitment before they become a customer. Also in this one, very clear on what is the checklist of the thing that we need to create and provide for the people to implement the things, and standard tracking setup as well. So in this way, the one that I talk about here is the standard tracking that I just shared for you. But then the standard quality about like, okay, what is the engagement, what is the performance, what is the development that we achieve after we deliver the standard is gonna be delivered through, you can gathering the insight from games, or in some case you have the national survey, right? So in this way, it's gonna be look like this. Yeah, and network education. So that is everything that you need to working on for reattraction. Okay, I know it's not a checklist for reattraction, but it are things that if you're actually working on the reattraction in a proper way, then this is how a reattraction should be look like. And this is the type of tracking tool and material that we actually need to working on as well. Yeah. Okay. Now, I think that we can talk a little bit about the part of here, because I think it's gonna, there are two things that I can tell you. Firstly, is about the recruitment funnel. So in terms of recruitment funnel, right, beside the part that you are tracking the campaign goal, achievement, good marketing, and so on, we need to have the ROATS. So actually, there's a lot of example on how the ATS should be look like. But then my recommendation is you should have two tracking tools. One, the first tracking tool is for tracking of the recruitment process from the time that they are become the lead info seeker, from the time that they got accepted. So the end of this day, if they got accepted, and after they got accepted, we're gonna move them to the next way, because in this way, then we can track the whole process of who gonna apply for what. And actually, you can also use this kind of thing not just for newbie tracking, but you can also use it for to manage and understand the team leader and team member application as well. Also in this one, it's just basic information about what is the JD and what is the role that they're gonna apply for. So that later on we can understand that what is the role that they got and what is the role that they didn't get it, the name of the LCEB, or the starting date of the realization, expire ID, and so on. You can adjust the status of this one based on how you want it, on how you want to customize the local contact. But then also I can recommend you one thing that I usually do in when I work OJX as well. If we have very clear process of how we contact the people and the process time as well. Because one of the key goal when we're talking about the recruitment timeline and the whole transition phase is gonna be about the efficiency of the process. What is the process time? What is the conversion rate? How we can ensure that we can have enough ideal HR and get them on board on time as well. So this is also the meaning of it. And then after they got accepted, we should move them into another way of management, because after they got accepted, one people can apply for many opportunities, but then maybe they would not get nothing. But then when they got accepted for the role, then in this way, we're gonna start to managing their experience. So we're gonna manage their experience by accept, approve, rely, and other thing as well. And also in this one, you can start to tracking the standard by this one. It doesn't need to be like you tracking every single one, but we can actually basically in a space of like reviewing the approval stage, we can ask them like if it's done or not done, or it's late, and the NBS and so on. So we can understand how the tracking for the member gonna be like, the experience gonna be look like. And then from here you can actually basically like review what is the total number of every state that we have for different direction in your entity as well. Yeah. Yeah, there's gonna be a Q&A space after this. You can also put your question along the way. Also, regarding to the approval stage, it's not really about, it's not really a standard, but it's not really a tracking tool, but it's gonna be like a working space on the personal development plan, on how the JD framework should be look like, and so on. For the personal development plan, right? In the upcoming commission call, you're gonna also hear about the review of the personal development plan, and you can also receive the global framework on this one so that you can see how you can apply for your entities. Yes, the next part is just mainly about when we talk about transformation, try to measure the efficiency of the space, how the managed engagement form development gonna be going, how the LBS, the response rate going, and also understand the have a quality insight from the survey, or to have a conversation with team leader and executive board to understand about it. Finally, if for the approval stage is checking about what is the retention rate, what is the complete, what is the LBS, and also what is the advanced number and alumni. So in this case, we can just basically tracking the funnel, but also at the same time, you can also tracking how about the number of complete meeting that we have, the number of license that we are deliver. So that in this way, you can actually have another tracking tool, no, another tracking tab to understand about how the finish and complete were happening. Because in many ways, if the complete it happened well, then we can also have a lot of people stay in asset as well. Yep. Okay. So we are mean to track everything on a separate tracker by exporting the info from export. Yes, right now, to be honest, right now, because everything that you are tracking right now is gonna be gradually embedded into export in the future. But because we don't have everything to be ready on export, and we are the first generation away, so that's why we need to start to like, we need to have a routine of tracking and understanding. And then in the future, when we start to have like standard being embedded on export, or we can have like funnel on export, for example, then it's gonna be the time that we can member already know that how they need to track everything on export. But then right now we need to understand about it and tracking everything from here. Okay, so this is the overall about what is something that it could be included in your tracking. And of course, when I again, everything is you're gonna receive a lot of example about it, but you can choose which one is the thing that makes the most sense for you to track, and what is the thing that is not make sense that you don't need to track. But this one is a suggestion list for you, and also try to create your own things, and then from the GCP that you are having, then we can actually understand how we can improve it in the future as well. Because before we put everything on export, we need to understand how the mechanism and how the tracking in the manual way should be look like. So it's also gonna be a way forward for us as well. Okay, so yeah, now we're gonna go to the next part. I'm sorry if it's over time.
Yeah, can I actually do the sharing? I think it would be easier from my side.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, cool. It's working. Okay, so this part here is just a little bit more about following up like two things we have now. One of them is about the indirect impact, that is the research that I'm being responsible for. And the other one is related with GAMS, that is something that you guys already saw, plus data tracking. So going first with the indirect impact, I decided to bring this here back to us, because I believe that one of the things that we always forget, because, okay, new things are coming up and so on. But the thing is, we need to remember that if we want things implemented properly, we need time to actually work over it. And our focus now is to actually focus on the quality of the membership experience. That's why direct and indirect impact is super important for us, because we don't want to be seen as wasting time, but as people that, are adding up to the experience and the organization. So I think it's important for us to keep it in mind when we are working with anything right now, especially with these new updates. But okay, going for the indirect impacts and the synergies, one of the things that we have been talking about is being an HR business partner. And I know that we already talked a little bit what that is, and I put here some files and things that you guys can read a bit more. But overall, the point of a business partner is pretty much to develop and direct HR agenda in a way that supports organizational goals. So making it clear for us, it means that as executive board, we need to be able to not only work during this 1 year, but we need to be able to support these strategies on long term as well. And I say executive board members because I believe that in the end of the day, the LCVPs and MCVPs, TM, are the ones that actually has the closest relation with an HR business partner when we see the description of the role. And another thing as well that I believe it's important, and one of the things that usually comes with these roles, is that we actually need to focus on the goals and the organization and how everything can actually be connected. So when we think about these things, about the responsibility and building the relationships, so the human resources is better used and all these things, this is pretty much what actually we should be doing, but in some cases we are not. And I believe that having this mindset is going to support us a lot. So pretty much about working smart. It's not about how much you do, but how these things are actually giving something back. And then how we can actually become, I actually brought two things. The first one is process, because of course we need to have a clear process when we are doing any kind of work. And as you all can see, like we always have like the link of the resources here, so you can always read more information there. But overall, we have like a few aspects and competencies that were connected with being an HR business partner, as you can see here. And all of them pretty much means that it's still a work in progress, because some people have these skills, others still need to develop, and we still need to have like this kind of trainings related with processes and the skills for that. But it doesn't mean that we can't start working over it. That's why it's important for now for us to have this mindset. And that's why the other point here is understanding that HR business partner can actually be a role and a mindset. So even if MCVPs and LCVPs are seen as the HR business partner in a sense, we need everyone inside TM to have the business partner thing mindset. So when we are working together, we need to understand how TM can be strategic. That's why even if someone has the role, all the others can still have the same kind of mindset. So when we talk about it, the mindset is not how we should be in the past, but how we must be to actually generate impact for the organization. So one of the first things I believe is about the people, but not only them. We need to find the balance. We can't be only fluffy or about performance. We need to find this balance in how we can work with both sides and actually have, the perfect balance for it. We need, of course, to have HR's work very visible, because if people don't see the relevance of your work, it means that we are probably doing something wrong. That's why we need to work together and not against each other. And for sure, we need to be relevant. And being relevant means that we need to generate impact. So if you are not doing these things, most likely we are going to have some issues in terms of being an HR business partner. And in this case, when we talk about TM as a strategic partner, we have one of the first things is working with EB. So here is actually some proposals of things that can be done with EB team. So having the quarterly TM impact report, we can have the working corners, we can have specifically spaces to actually work together with team leaders, so on local level, short and long-term planning with each other. So not only EBs thinking about, okay, quarter, semester, year, the next 3-5 years, but having the team leaders already being correlated with that too is important. MXP implementation, the HR structure that to actually support the things. And specifically when we talk about corners, because it's a strategic partner, one example here we have that was already shared with MCPs for national level is the culture and people corner. So for example, we review day, culture, Isaac value, what is the overall situation of our people. We talk about the community creation. We talk about icon management. So we have this corner that we actually look these things, analyze them, and create a way forward for that. And specifically now when we go for team leaders, we have more or less some similar stuff. But for example, team leaders, they can support bringing a team perspective for the TM impact. In this case, they can review as well the HR structure and give their own suggestions because they are living it too, so they can be part of the process. We can actually have a two-way street between team leaders and EBs for SWOT analysis of their own work. So many things that we can actually start doing with them to guarantee that, yes, even from the team leader level, they start having this understanding because they will be the future leaders. So if they don't have this practice now, when they're going to have it. And then when we talk about strategic partner, we need to remind the 4 scopes that we have. So we talk pretty much about insight, quantity, quality, and leadership. And as you can see in the GST, we have pretty much this structure. And this is one way that you guys can start working when you're being more strategic, having people to focus in the future, people to focus in the capacity of our people now, and as well the quality of what they are having, and for sure having the idea of growth. So how we can improve the people, the leadership pipeline. And in this case, pretty much to wrap up all that, I would say that it's about actions. And that's going to actually help us with the indirect impact and the synergies. So one of the first things and understanding that, yes, we need to be strategic. We can't just check boxes. We need to actually think about the things and have the information for that. We need to remind ourselves that even more now than ever, people understand that our intellectual capital, our people, they are relevant. If people leave, they leave the knowledge with them, especially in Isaac, where we don't have still some better way of doing knowledge management. So if people, good people leave, they leave all these things with them. And we need to guarantee that we are going to actually keep and have it better collected with us. And of course, we need to guarantee that the effort generates something, or else we are not doing what we should be doing and we are not being strategic. And then of course, from my side and what I will be working with the GST is the research of how we can work with indirect impact. Because the thing is, we need to understand how we can measure or understand better what we are doing. So in this case, one of the first points is it's a research and we are going to need support from people, because actually one of the proposals here is to have some support on national and local level of people that will put their time to understand these things. So we are going to need you guys' support to actually do that, because we want to make impact that matters. And that's why for this part, we need all the support that you guys can give, because it's going to be ongoing. And my question in this case for you guys is, TM for many years has seen as unnecessary to the organizational strategies. So how do you see TM to be seen by 2025? I hope that is actually better, because honestly speaking, it's not really nice to see how TM was seen before and how people just dismiss the work that we are doing. So I hope that with all that, we are going to be able to have a better picture. And then you guys will have here, like very briefly, just the setup way forwards that we have for the data side. So as you know, we have all these things going on, but what are the things that we observed so far? So as you guys saw, we have GAMs. And from global perspective, we have a few things that we plan for next steps. So we have this synergy with OD, and we want to see how we can actually work better with them. We are still trying to understand relevance, frequency, and when the question should go, because in the future it may go to EXPA. We are trying as well to understand how to better gather information to generate better insights. So this is another thing that we are still trying to understand. And of course, we really want to clarify global, regional, national, and local responsibilities and data gathering, because we need to complement each other and not go against each other. So we need to have more synergies in that. And then for GANs and data tracking, we have some proposals and suggestions for that. First, of course, giving feedback for us, please, whenever we ask these things is important. Then the other thing we are trying to work more is the capacity and skills related with data management and how we can work with EBs to guarantee the way of gathering this information. So we really advise to actually start seeing this from your side as well and how we can improve in these parts. I know that some entities have like good GCPs and they have like good people that can support. So whatever is created for that is going to be very helpful for everyone else. Then for data tracking, more specifically for national sites, we actually ask to understand the what, how, and the frequency of the national data. Because yes, we need to understand what is global responsibility. So we take from global side for everyone, what is better on national or local level. So in this case, it goes from these layers. And we need to understand too if surveys are better or not for something, or if it's trackers, or if there is something else. Because in this case, we need to love the problem and not the solution. We only know surveys and trackers, but maybe there is a third way or a fourth way. So we need to understand these things. And that's why we need you guys as well to have these moments to work with your commission and work with your ESTs as well to maybe see what can be done. From national perspective too, we have the GAMs that while they can be good for especially quantitative, is not so good for qualitative. So we need to understand what from national and local size we can gather from qualitative data and to be like PDP or team spaces, whatever. And another proposal that we put here, you guys will have this information, but we just have like some ideas of things that you guys can already start doing in terms of tracking to make your life a little bit easier. I'm going to explain this most likely in the consultancy spaces if you want, or we can have like another space for that. But here are some proposals. And if there's anything else that comes to your minds, we can for sure discuss more. But here is an overall idea considering what we have for MXP funnel, what we have about the corners that we commented, direct and indirect impact, and so on. So we are just taking most of the things that we already talked about. And for sure, understanding the funnel, we need still your support on national local level because we don't know everything yet for weekly, monthly, and quarterly, considering the funnel. So whatever you guys are able to work with and bring to us and to the community overall of TMers, it's going to be like super helpful. And for a local perspective, we just gave a few ideas of how we can actually support them and even you guys. So mostly it's capacity building, the co-creation that we commented before, encouraging people as well to give feedback and work as a community and not only expecting top-down decisions. And other points is importing, of course, the report of data gathering, because the thing is, we gather data, but we don't report it or we don't report it well. And people need to see that their effort is giving something. And not only from global perspective, but even national and local, it needs to happen. And people need to be more data driven. So it's something that we need as well to practice with them and develop in terms of short, medium, and long-term perspective. And just to finish attentions for the things I say. So one, global survey, please help us in terms of support and feedback. It's really important. The second one, data awareness, because again, we don't know the layers and who should actually be responsible for what yet 100%. So let's help each other and understand what we need. And of course, TM as a community, because we are here in a change management situation that we need to work together to fix the things. It's not only AI or RO or GST or steering team that are going to work over it, but it's everyone from TM working together. So wherever ideas come up, even from local level, from a member, it's amazing, but we need these ideas and we need to talk. And yeah, when we think about data, do you see more work or an opportunity to learn and develop more with less human effort? Because whatever we put now in terms of effort is going to save a lot of time later in the future. And while it would be amazing to be with us, I believe that if our successors can have a much easier life because of us, it's much better. So I hope that we can actually have this kind of mindset as well. Hopefully it's going to be something that we will be thinking, even if it would be nicer to be another way. But for now, if your successor is happier, I think it's a good goal to have. That's it. But I don't think we have time to talk.
Yeah. Do we have time to talk? Mali?
running out of time. Yes.
Okay. So we are out of time. Yes. Okay. So we need to go back to the main room. Okay, guys. So that is all of the part that we're going to talk about, and if you have more questions, it's gonna be in the consultancy space. Okay. So let's go to the main room.